It's that time of the week again. Another Got Something For You, where we're recapping episode 11 of Survivor 47. A very special week, especially for our viewers here in the US. There is the holiday. So, I mean, like, Phil, I know it was a big holiday for you and I. Did you get to watch Survivor with a bunch of family?
I did, and good and bad thing. I'd say a four-year-old nephew and two twin 2-year-old nephews were not necessarily into all the strategy, but I did get to watch the episode, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Oh, good. I had fun with this episode. I thought it was actually like a great time. What a party. Ollie, I was so excited to chat with you about it after I knew you watched it because this was like the most this was a heavy like character
Yes.
episode. Do you think so too?
Yeah, because I feel like we had some really nice moments this episode of like understanding people's games. Like even when you say character, I feel like it's character but on a game level. Like we kind of got to understand more people's game things. A couple of people like people wise, but like I feel like there was a really nice scene that I can't wait to talk about with I think we all know the three people.
Well, I also have to ask this. If we did a 3-2-1 and all said a player name, can we name who, in your opinion, was the player of the episode? All right, put it in your mind. All right. 3, 2, 1, Rachel.
John Lovett. Oh.
Who?
Close. Almost John.
Almost John. Yeah, but Rachel really was, and I'm sorry if that lagged for anyone else. Roy says, Andy. You know what? Andy also was in here, but here's the thing, and we're going to get into it in this episode. This was a very clear, actually, this is a good question to have during our entire conversation today is, are we getting back to predictable editing? Because in my head, there was a very strong winner edit when it came to Rachel and a very strong third place or second place edit when it came to Andy, which I'm excited to talk about, which isn't to say that Andy isn't doing a good job. I think he is, but it's a matter of what everyone else sees. So getting into the episode, I mean, I had high hopes for Sue and she kind of let me down this episode. I'm not going to lie.
How?
Well, okay. Because when Sue had that edit where she was, and we talked about it before, kind of following in Gabe's shadow for a lot of, whether you agree with it or not, using Gabe as a shield, but really more so following in Gabe's plan. And I felt like here is a great opportunity to say, all right, my number one is out of the game. You can either take the reins and fully drive the game at this point, or you find another person to fill in that hole. And that's exactly what I think she did with Rachel.
I agree. I completely 100% agree. I feel like with Sue, it's again, and I think I've expressed this quite a bit, just what I expect of her pre-game is not what I've seen. And I think because with this particular thing, it was obviously Caroline doing damage control, which I think she did an amazing job at. But Sue kept kind of mentioning her loyalty, which I get. You need loyalty in the game. Like you have to at least trust someone. But for me, it's like there is loyalty, but then there is loyalty to the point where you're playing someone else's game. Like you're not playing your own game. And I felt like that is what was happening with Sue. So I hope now with Gabe out of the picture, we will start to see more of Sue's game because she has stuff up her sleeve, which hopefully she can utilize for herself.
Right. But I think, in Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that's exactly what you're worried about is that once someone who she has sort of been absolutely strapped to for the entire game in Gabe gets voted off, she has found a new person in Rachel with not even a step in between to do her own thing. She immediately has someone coming up to her, reading her correctly and saying, hey, Sue is an emotional player. I'm finding out that she was so strapped to Gabe because Gabe was honest about his advantage. Why don't I be honest about my advantage? And boom, now she'll be mine. And we're seeing that. And it's kind of like wild because she doesn't seem to have had much of like an ethos shift through the game. I feel like what drove her at the start is still what's driving her now.
Yeah.
Which is a little concerning, considering I think we all have the same sort of interest in seeing Sue play her own game and not strap herself to another power player.
Yeah, and there's the opposite side of that coin, which is to say what has worked for you up until now in the game, why change that strategy? But I think it's all about jury perception. And we also that plays into Andy a little bit too, which we're going to talk about as well. I do think that it was interesting that Sue I mean, obviously it makes sense. She feels betrayed by Caroline. I think that is a proper reaction to it. And I do agree, Ollie. I think you said Caroline did a really good job which, by the way, the first person to talk to Sue after the vote out, did we notice in the edit that night at Becca, was Rachel. But then we get the conversation between Caroline and Sue, where it seems like Sue feels really good after this conversation with Caroline, which I think just goes to show that Caroline really went about this in the correct way, and we got to know more about her.
Yeah. I was really excited to see more about Caroline because Caroline has always been this like hype person. And I'm really glad we got to kind of see her play this game, like showcase her game, sorry. Because I think she had an absolute impeccable read on Gabe. Like, as soon as she was explaining, like, why she went for Gabe, it was like, obviously, us as viewers, we can go, you are literally 100% right, because that is what Gabe was saying behind your back. So the fact that you could tell, well done, like, puts me up there for her. I do worry about her, though. I do worry about her.
In the sense that you think that she's going to get voted out soon?
No, I worry for her for fire.
Oh,
I'm curious. What's making you call her?
I don't. So this is the thing. I feel there was actually two things that happened this episode that made me really think I have an idea of who the two people that could be in fire are. I think Caroline could be one of them, but actually, part of me thinks that this was almost a reference to her winning fire. So, but that's why I say I worry about Caroline with fire, because I think she could be in it.
All right, Ollie, but who is she beating?
Yeah, you got to give it to us all. Where does it come from? Who is she there with? Who is she beating?
We'll see their photo soon.
Oh,
okay.
All right, so I'll move it along then to see if we appear. But I do want to shout out. I am happy that we got to know Caroline a lot more as a person in this segment. I think that it you know what, it like really we've been getting a sense of who Caroline was with her cheerleading for everyone throughout the entire series, which I've loved. But just to get to hear a little bit more about her story from her I was very, very happy about. Roy, I hope that is wrong, and Ollie, I hope your mind isn't there either.
Nope.
But
we'll I can confirm it wasn't.
Oh wow. Okay. So after this, we do see a final three get made, and which turns into a final five. So the final three is between Andy, Rachel, and Teeny, which I am so excited about. And then they bring in Caroline and Sue, which I thought was actually a really smart idea.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to have an actual number majority. I always think it's so silly when people get these tight groups together and it's like, okay, we are the tightest three there are. Yeah. It's like, okay, but there are 7 people in the game. You need at least 4 to have a majority. So it's nice that they have Caroline and Sue in here to sort of round out their numbers. I am a little bit I feel like I rest a little bit uneasy with this group. And it's because I always have a little bit of an issue with these self-appointed underdogs. And it's it's a little bit frustrating when you look at who's on the outside, and with love and respect, Sam has really not had any power since the start of Merge. I mean, all of his power plays, all of his time in power has happened before he even met these folks. And so I think it's interesting that he is sort of being dubbed somewhat one of the power players. Genevieve, totally understand. But even Kyle is a physical threat. But from a social and strategic standpoint, he has done nothing yet. And so it's really interesting to be like, oh, we're the underdogs, even though we have numbers. And I would say that they've probably swayed more votes than anyone else that's still on the island, barring maybe Genevieve. So it's an interesting thought there.
No, I 100% agree. I find it hilarious that when they first said, yeah, with the Underdog Alliance, I was like, you're the majority. How are you the underdogs? Like, if there was 6 other people, then yeah, I get it. But also, I completely agree with everything you just said there, Phil. Like, a lot of these people have been steering the votes and have moves to their resume. So I do find it funny that a couple of them are sat there being like, I'm an underdog. I'm like, how? You've been on the right side of the vote every single time, Teeny.
But wait, here's this thing though. I will say that when someone in your group says, "Oh, it's great that we're a group of underdogs," I would instantly be like, "Yes, yeah, it's so great." Because what are you going to say? Actually, I'm a challenged beast, or actually, I'm a major threat. Like, I don't know.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. They are all doing what they're technically supposed to do. I just find it so funny because from an audience perspective, you're looking at a group of people who have driven almost every vote, again, barring the votes that Genevieve was heading. And they're calling themselves underdogs. And I do think it's sort of like a something to sort of just tie them all together and make their reign feel a little bit morally righteous. So I'm excited to see how they move forward. I do think that even someone like Andy, who, look, I've loved Andy's journey. I think that he is one of the most interesting people to watch on this season, but he has celebrated the blind side of people on the jury, and he has quoted it as being, quote, hella fun. And it's like, that's not really the word of a powerless underdog. That's the word of someone who is stomping out their competition and dancing on the way down the street, So it's interesting to get both sides. And I wonder if we were going to see the other shoe fall.
Fate by Fire.
Oh, I think
he's the guy. He's the guy.
He's the Fate by Fire. He's giving me not Liz, but in this sense of like, I feel like he's going to have this thing where he's already kind of getting this complex where he's like, I'm great, I'm amazing, like I'm this great player. And I feel like it's like the edit is setting us up for like, almost like we want to feel robbed for Andy. And I feel like that's why I have a feeling he could be the Fate of Fire Final Four. So that's where because if I'm not mistaken, he has had the episode title for the last 4 consecutive episodes. They are trying to push Andy in our faces. And that's why I think he could be the Final Four Fate of Fire.
Now I'm the new Ollie. I have a point here. Yeah. I think that is absolutely bogus. There's no way episode title has that much meaning. And this is, and just to sort of like push that, I think that you got to think like, who is actually caring about episode title?
Yeah.
Certainly not the casuals. I think even the super fans to a certain extent aren't really, it's like the deep seated, like, oh, I'm looking at everything, any sort of hints of the Ollies of the world. But Ollie, you have to remember, you are a unique, lovely individual. People aren't like you, Ollie. A lot of people aren't looking at the episode titles. So I'm not necessarily certain that's a hunch.
No, I will say, I was just referencing the episode titles in regards to the editing and how the editors are, because the editors are really pushing Andy. We've seen this really like push of Andy. And I was just referencing the episode titles as.
In my opinion, though, I kind of feel like he's getting a little bit of. I do agree with the path that we're seeing, but I think they're pushing him in a way that is more about like an Icarus edit, like a flying too close to the sun type of edit. Because at one point in the game, let's face it, yes, Andy was an underdog at one point. Yeah. But now we've gotten to this part where he's just. I feel like he's very happy with the power that he has and the power he's wielding, but I think it's going to catch up with him. Roy, I love what you said here. Andy, Rachel, and Teeny is the worst Final 3 for Andy. Every other combo is better for Andy. I agree with that. I very much do. I think in other areas, it's a closer... I mean, partially for me, just because a lot of it has to do with Rachel is there, and I do think Teeny would do very well with the jury. But at the same time, like I think a better Final 3 for him would be with Caroline and Sue, even though I think Caroline would be a tough competition for him, especially in that situation.
Sorry, just to not lose the beautiful analogy you just gave, Icarus. Yes, that Andy is Icarus. I think that's spot on. Yeah. And I think that's where I'm getting at, where I'm like, I'm so sorry. You're right. He started off being this with love, helpless survivor contestant who was down and out, absolutely on the bottom, and we've seen him sort of climb to a point where I think he's already gotten close to the sun. I mean, again, him talking about how fun it was to vote off. Oh my gosh, now I'm losing it. But all of these blindsides, even prior to Sierra, back. Yes, Annika. I think that it started with Annika, and then you saw him talk about Sierra. Then even at this episode's tribal council, he looks over and he goes, I'm partially responsible for all these people who were blindsided. And I just think that he is, honestly, he's having a little bit too much fun playing with his food.
Yeah.
And I think that you can't do that on Survivor because that is, like, you saw, I'm sorry, I think that they cut to the jury after Andy deliberately talked about how he helped put blindside all those people on the jury. They don't look like they're, happy with him, that they're like, oh, you know what? You blindsided us and we have so much respect for you. They looked pissed. And now you're over here bragging about it. I think that the way to do things is honestly more like Caroline and Rachel, where when they are referencing the jury, they're talking about how powerful they are.
Yeah.
And oh my God, look, y'all were all such good power players, such big power players. We had to get you out,
And does anyone see Andy? Like, does anyone see the moves though either? That's the other thing that I'm because like in some ways I feel like people are still underestimating the gameplay part of him, but at the same time I agree that it's like, which either way you look at it, it's bad for his game.
Yeah, I don't like it. I'm gonna be honest, I don't like it, and I think that it's hard to. And look, people are more dynamic than these boxes we try to put them in day to day. But I think it's hard to put Andy in a box because I'm sorry, I don't think he's the nice guy anymore. All he talks about is how much fun he has blindsiding people and kicking their butt at this game. I'm sorry, like that's not nice guy. But I also don't think that he's a Gabe. He's not necessarily like unnecessarily harsh all the time. Like I think it's hard to place him. And I think that sometimes when you're hard to place and you're hard to understand, it works against you in a game like this. So I am sort of waiting for that other shoe to drop. I think that Andy's story is not over. I think much like a pendulum, he started over here, he swung in the right direction, but I think he's swinging back.
Great.
Ooh, and Roy says even a final three with Jen, Andy, and Sam is better for Andy. Let's talk about that other group.
I disagree.
I disagree as well.
But also, Frank, explain here. He was last in the closing credits. Do you mean the voting when you see everyone's votes, those credits? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, we see this group and it was so funny. Speaking of the underdog, it was so funny to see the conversation with the majority calling themselves the underdogs, and then to see this group over here, just so sad.
The true underdogs of the current season.
Yeah, and
right.
they figured it out right away. They said those five are teaming up.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I think that was Genevieve. I think Genevieve blocked it.
Yeah, who's surprised? Genevieve is a wizard, dude. Genevieve is so good at this game. I am like constantly impressed with Genevieve. And I think this is probably going to go to sort of me and Ali's comment on your chat, Roy. First of all, love having all y'all in the chat. Please, I love being able to actually have some call and response here. I do think I disagree with you on your last claim, Roy. I think Genevieve would win in a final three against any of these people. I think that she has the hardest path to get there now that Kyle is out. I think that's tough, and so I agree with you there, Roy. I do think Genevieve peaked a little bit too soon, but I think that if she finds herself there, I think she wins it.
Oh, can you imagine Jen getting there?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's hard, but I also think that this group of underdogs eventually they're going to turn their guns at each other. I think that it's gonna happen at some point. Ali.
But I was going to say, obviously, like Roy, you mentioned that you said that Genevieve and Sam kind of peaked too soon. But the kind of, for me anyway, I feel like the flip side of that is if they make it to the end, they have an underdog story to say, we made moves. Unfortunately, like things flipped on us, but then we were able to recover and get to this point. We were able to survive and adapt, and here's how. So, because they're not going to just make it there willy-nilly. Like, they're not going to make it, like, I'm sorry, in my opinion, I don't see Sam or Genevieve being dragged to a final three. If someone thinks they can drag them, part of me feels like that is going to be strategy that they use, especially Sam. I feel like Sam would try and play that up.
I will say, I do think that Andy can beat Sam. I don't think Sam has. I don't think Sam has done enough post merge, man. And I also think that just like from a like origin story narrative of Andy and Sam, I think that Andy, like, he has a better story, like, directly next to Sam, where he's like, hey, at the start, I listened to this guy and everything that he told me. As we went on in the game, he was listening to me.
Fair.
And I just think that is a beautiful narrative. But I think, put Genevieve in the third spot. I think that it's a wash. But I do think that Sam is maybe down and out. He has to like do something serious. I don't understand why they are so fixated on him. I don't see Sam as that big of a threat.
That's another thing where it's like I feel like the perception of Sam from before Sierra was voted out is lingering with him, like in a way, like just like how Andy's underdog status is lingering with him within himself through the end of the game. Sam, the timing of Sierra's blindside was so unfortunate, especially for Sam and the rest of his game, because it's at that point where there is going to be a majority and there's going to be a minority in the group. And he, in a way, I sympathize with him just because he's at such a sore spot where he is so playing from the bottom. Maybe they just, does it go back to challenge threat? I think also a part of it is when you're in a larger group, you're going to make it seem like a person is a target, so much because they're not in your group that you find the reasons that you need to vote them out before anyone can think to even use him as a number.
So check this out.
Yeah.
There is a conversation about people who don't need to do much. If they get to the end, they win. And it's just almost in their physical being, right? Do I think that Sam is that with love? No. But I do think that he is someone just in his being. I do think that there's something about him that is clearly making people see him as a threat. And it's just in who he is. Maybe just how charismatic he is. Because the truth is this, Matt, he has not even done that good in challenges. So that's not like, from what we are seeing, I think there is hardly anything logical and statistical that we can look at to be like, oh, that's why he's a threat. I think that it is just a feeling. And honestly, I mean, just like to jump to Roy's previous comment there, I mean, he says it when he's talking about Andy, he says, look, logic doesn't really work on me. I like Andy best. I think that happens to certain people. Certain people just like certain people best, or feel as though someone is a power player, despite what they have or haven't done. They just give off that vibe. And so I think that Sam is honestly in like one of the worst spots where he does not really have any power, yet he's seen as having a bunch. So no one really wants to empower him anymore. And it's like, it's interesting. It's interesting to watch.
Yeah, I agree. Oh, by the way, and Frank, thank you for yeah. And I didn't notice that actually. So great call out there with where Andy is positioned in the opening credits. But yeah, shout out to Minnow who's not here today. But hopefully we'll see them next week. And always a pleasure, Minnow. If you're watching this after the fact, we miss you. And okay, okay, yeah, and then Kyle.
Oh, bless Kyle. We'll give. Well, I think we should give him some flowers here because I feel like this is the scene I really wanted to talk about because I feel like I really enjoyed that we got a confessional from each of them, and I just want to like give the producers some props there. Like, obviously, I know there's only like 8 people, but the fact that they took the time to kind of give each person like their moment, I really enjoyed because even though, like, to your point, Phil, like Kyle hasn't really done much socially or strategically, we still have seen him adapt more in the game. And I like how this was a scene about adaptability and how they have been able to kind of adapt or even in some cases survive. So I just wanted to give.
Why did I get the sense that there was like such a strong power player like locked beneath something in Kyle. Like I feel like if like there was something, especially with the way that he approached this last vote out, with the way that he said eventually Gabe and I are going to have to go after each other. He was on board. Maybe I don't know if making the move happen was technically through him, but he was one of the first to throw Gabe's name out. So I actually do think in a way, yeah, we can give the Gabe vote out move to Kyle in that sense. But I also think like there was something that changed with him, and I loved listening to him as he described how he had been approaching the game in the beginning and how he wants to approach the game now and what he's learned from it. And I was like, oh, that's prime 50 player, if you ask me. I'd love to see what he would do if he returned.
Well,
I feel like
that he's... No, please. Go ahead, Ollie.
No, I was just going to say, I feel like we saw that with all three of them, but I'll finish my point in a minute. You can go first, Phil.
Yeah, I think that Kyle is such an interesting character and contestant on this show. And I think that it comes down to the fact that, it has been a long time since we've seen a challenge beast, but even when we have, they haven't been the Kyle, they've been people who are, they go back to camp and they are continuing to sort of be the larger than life looming sort of threat. I think that Kyle is someone that, without his numerous wins, I think that I would love to see how he plays. And to your point, Matt, like we got a little bit of that this episode. We even got a confessional from him where he's like, after, look, we're skipping ahead a bit here. So this was a very exciting episode for me. We get the confessional of him where he says, look, like, I don't have an idol. I don't have individual immunity this time around. We will have to see what I can do with my social skills. And we see him try. And it sounds like such an easy bar to cross, but so many contestants just completely bow out when the inherent way that they'd like to play the game doesn't go their route. And it's just really great to see Kyle be like, hey, I need to flex something else. And he didn't do a bad job. I don't even think that he did a bad job. Ultimately, Andy ends up not voting Kyle at this tribal, which is so interesting. He got Andy. So, I think that I would like to see what he does with a little bit more emphasis on his social abilities.
Yeah. And we do have to jump to the journey, which I loved. But I think it is interesting, just while we're on the topic, that like, especially in this edit, Genevieve and Kyle seem to be like two sides of the same coin, or the opposite side of the same coin, where we had Kyle being like playing with emotion, but now switching to strategy. And then we had Genevieve, who was like, after the Keyshawn vote, I was so strategy. And like, do I play with emotion? And I thought that was a really actually cool edit. And Sam was in the middle.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because that's why I just wanted to quickly mention, because I really loved, this is what I love to see, because I feel like we did get to see Genevieve's more vulnerable side here, because I feel like we have seen the strategist, as people online have been saying, the Kim, the poverty. And I love that we got to see kind of Genevieve, the person here, because she made a quote and it said, I'd rather be the villain that people didn't connect with over the best friend that killed their dreams. And I feel like that just tells you so much about Genevieve in just one sentence. Like, not just her as a player, but her as a person, which I really appreciated. And it made me root for her more. So,
oh, yeah, I'm still rooting for Genevieve. But like, so they know that they're on the bottom. And I love that Genevieve and Sam were both like, all right, we need to go on this journey, which I was like, I'm sorry, more people need to raise their hand. I was so proud of Rachel too.
Yes.
For noticing, okay, these are two people I'm not working with. No one who I am working with seems to be raising their hand. I think I gotta represent from that group and just see what happens. And it worked out for her. So like, I thought that was it was. I wrote it in the group chat, and listen, whether or not Rachel wins the show at the end of the day, I wrote it in our group chat where I was just like, this is the most Rachel is winning episode I have ever seen, even if it's not true. Yeah, honestly, this could be Rachel's best move because it was such a split-second decision. So subtle. But there were so many people that I were like, raise your hand. Kyle, I was like, go. Do
I
it.
think every last one of them should have raised their hand.
Agreed.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm so sorry. At this point in the game, like it's life or death. You don't know what's going on out there. Even if you think you do, you probably don't. I mean, it's look, I almost want to get to the next slide. This was such a
Oh my
fun
God.
challenge,
Yes.
like mini game. This was literally like a Survivor mini game, and
I
and I
think so.
I almost like that the journey part of it, the trek. I'm sorry, I'm okay. I'm okay.
This was so refreshing.
This was so fun. Get right to it. It's fun. It's different. It's new. It's fresh.
Yep.
It was. I had a blast with this. In the tension from just like you're not looking at a little hourglass going down. No, dude. Like these anchors
Yeah.
are going to literally pull this challenge away from you. I was obsessed with this. I think this
Yeah.
was amazing on production.
Agreed. Because I've seen this. This is going to sound so weird, but on my Facebook timeline, I've seen people doing this challenge like so many
just
times.
the game.
This is-
Yeah.
just been playing this game. So when I saw it on Survivor, I was like, real life. But no, I just loved it. I enjoyed it because it was just like you said, Phil. It's just something so different, and I appreciated that. Like you said, it wasn't an hourglass. It was you could just hear the rope.
Oh,
I'd have been swearing. I would have, like, they would have had to have beeped so much because I would have just been.
this is one of those things that I would love to try one day, but just not in this situation. Not when my life in the game is depending on it. And I think that makes it like a perfect Survivor challenge where the stakes were so high. I was so scared for her, even though I did think that she was going to be okay. It's just like I wanted her to succeed, and the theatricality of this was so dramatic and so wonderful. I loved it.
There's something about like the physical aspect of like, hey, this challenge is going to be tugged away from you if you don't do it in time. Like, I don't think we've ever seen that. I think that this was so good on you, Survivor production. This was innovative. It was fun. It was fresh. It was very unique, and I think it was a knockout the park.
You know what? I just thought of a
Agreed.
video idea. We could do ranking all of the journey challenges. That'd be a fun
Oh.
Survivor Now podcast one to do.
Honestly, that'd be really
I
fun.
already know my top one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a few that come to mind. But oh yeah. Wait, talking about this idol. Does Sam still have the expired idol, Frank?
Yeah.
Oh,
He never used it.
We'll see if he knows what to do with it now. That's always a scary situation, having a fake idol and being like, okay, how do I use this to my advantage? But Rachel ends up getting an advantage, which is a block a vote, which I think is a great advantage.
But what's great about it is a secret blocker vote. That's
true.
the part I loved because it is this kind of thing where she does she's told her people now, but the person that gets it done, that happens on, they're going to sit there and be like, oh my God, what? And then obviously if they have no idea and then one of that 5 goes to jury and they're like, this secret blocker vote, all they have to do is be like, yeah, it was Rachel. More resume for her. Phil?
I think it's hard to say how good it is, to be honest. I think that yeah. I mean, think about it. A steal a vote is you essentially blocking someone's vote and giving yourself an additional vote. And the first time that we ever saw that actually work in a real sense was with Rome this season. So every other time that it was used in the past, it either didn't work or it had absolutely no sway on anything. So this is a worse advantage than a steal a vote, and it took seasons for that to work. So that's just my thought. I think we're gonna have to see how it works.
I mean, you're not wrong, especially because the way that it worked out now, we have an alliance of 5 versus 3. So I feel like the only way that this would be beneficial or television worthy in a way would be if it was a split 4-3. Oh, sorry. Yeah. 4-3. How many are there? 3-3.
Oh,
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Ollie, wow.
7. I was trying to do
After this episode, there are 6.
Thank you. Okay. So it would be, so we have 5-3. That's 8.
We have 7 people after this.
Oh crap! I might be
1,
wrong.
2, 3.
I can do them. So
Guys, we're embarrassing ourselves. This is the point.
No, I can do this.
The block a vote is a worse steal a vote, and I think steal a vote took years and seasons upon seasons to actually add real value. So
Okay.
I am going to have to see what happens with this block a vote. I think it is too early to call it a good advantage.
Maybe they should have switched it out for an extra vote. Maybe. I mean, it doesn't matter in Rachel's case because she is totally fine. But imagine if it was Genevieve or Sam or Kyle who went on this journey. What is this? To Phil's point, what is this going to do for them?
Yep.
Also, sorry, I just want to pull this up. I think this is so funny. Rachel won't need to use a block a vote. They should have given her matches.
What?
Everyone believes that she's going to lose fire. What is this? This is such an interesting.
No, I don't.
I don't know.
And by the way, I've heard it by a lot of people. I've heard a lot of people say they think that Rachel's going to lose a fire.
Is it because that she got a fire edit in her glasses? Is that what it was?
I don't even know if it's that. I just think that she's doing so well right now. It's hard to see her being the winner, which is such a shame because we have gotten to a point where you see someone do so well and you're like, they've got to be the fallen angel. No shot that they are going to win. And I get you, Roy. I get you. I am with you. I'm like, something has to happen because she's getting such a great edit right now. Like, is she really going to take this home just like this? Is it going to be that easy for her?
Before the Saul vote, I would have said Genevieve was going to be the fallen angel. But then the Saul vote happened and it got blown up. And I do think you're right, Phil. Like, I do think well, we'll continue because when we're talking about Rachel's edit here, it's like, it's still kind of understated. Like, although she's front and center, her gameplay is still kind of understated. We see her win over Sue this episode, right? Like, that is an instant person that is always going to be by her side, but she tells everyone, I didn't, here's what happened. Basically the entire story, except for the fact that she got the advantage. Sam kind of calls it out. He's like, I'm just going to assume that she did come back with something, which is smart and the right thing to do. But she does tell Sue, and I think Caroline was there too, about the advantage. And here's, Phil, we were talking about this earlier before, and I think you said something, and correct me if I'm wrong here, you said something along the lines of like Rachel identified that Sue had Gabe and was an emotional player. And if she told her about this, I don't even know if Rachel at this point in this conversation was like fully thinking that through in terms of her reasoning for telling Sue. Because it kind of seemed like a bit of a surprise from Rachel. I think she was a little surprised to hear the reaction because she didn't know that Gabe had told Sue about the advantage that he had.
In this case, I'm going to need to rely on YouTube's memories because I do not remember for sure. I had a bunch of little ones running around while I was watching this. I don't know why in my head I remembered getting a confessional from Rachel being like,
we do.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In this part, it's Sue lets Rachel know why she trusted Gabe so much, and it's basically what Rachel just did there. So Rachel was like, I'm letting you know.
Sue let her know after she showed her.
Yes.
Got you. Okay, see, I think
and then we got the confessional from Rachel. Sorry.
But to that point, I found it was so funny. It stuck out because it was so funny to me that Rachel was just like, oh, like cool, like great. And you know what? I do think to your point, what you outlined before was exactly like the best case for Rachel here, which was, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that I did this. But yeah, I guess I trust Sue. She was very loyal to Gabe to a fault, and I think she's going to be very loyal to me.
Yeah, I think I definitely, I think in my mind, I felt it to be more intentional. But if that was the order of things, then yeah, she just lucked into that. And honestly, good for her. That's Survivor. Part of its luck.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that a lot of people don't ever acknowledge. But it's like Survivor. Every Survivor winner has had luck on their side. So it's a big deal.
I wonder if Rachel felt like she was happy. Like, I'm sure she did, but just like a great Survivor day. Oh, and it's only going to get better, by the way. So there are 2 more slides here, Ollie. Is there anything that you want to share about like Genevieve Andy before we go?
Yeah, I feel like this was this was the only little moment. I was just going chronologically, and we had this is where Genevieve came to Rachel and was like, I think we should get some of the floaters out and named Sue and Andy. And for me, it was more so Andy's reaction. But I feel like that's just me. I felt that
went to Andy.
No, so Genevieve went. Genevieve went to Rachel, and then Rachel went to Andy, and it was Andy's reaction. This was just a photo I found. But yeah, it was Andy's reaction. I was kind of like, you're so mad that she threw your name out, but then you've thrown her name out multiple times, literally thrown her under the bus all the time, but she's going to throw your name out and you're going to be mad. Cool. We love Survivor. But that was my only thing with these slides, because that was the chronological order going into it.
Got it. I mean, that sets the stage nicely. Let's go into the immunity challenge right after a very quick break, and we're going to continue talking about Rachel's very good day on Survivor.
Think you're the most knowledgeable Survivor superfan? Well, you can put that to the test with our Fantasy Survivor game. Welcome to Bracketology, fantasy sports for reality TV. We provide fantasy football-style games for your favorite shows like Survivor and many more. We also have bracket-style elimination challenges. Set your picks once for the whole season to see how your prediction skills fared. And don't forget to check out the season extras like contestant info, where you can see all the bios of each contestant, and our scoring recaps that are published each episode. Download the Bracketology mobile app or play on your computer at fantasy.bracketology.tv. It's entirely free to play, and you can win some awesome prizes. Good luck.
All right, this is one of my favorite immunity challenges, but real quick, Roy, you said Jen saying Andy is a floater shows Jen is off her game, which you know what? I have to say, I think many people see Andy as a floater. So I don't think it's just Jen in this situation. But yeah, I mean, I do think people are missing Andy's game. I love this challenge. I want to try this challenge. It's always the challenge that shows up and I'm like, it can't be that hard. But apparently it really is.
I love challenges like this because really, I think that the main thing that this is really pointing to is like dexterity. There doesn't seem to be a like athlete or no athlete advantage or, gendered advantage. There is literally like, hey, dexterity seems to be something. It really
touch.
You cannot read it on someone. Yes, it's all about touch.
All about touch, because this is what I love about this challenge, because just because someone is in the lead at the start, as soon as I hear this person's in the lead for the first time, I'm like, yeah, we've still got 5 minutes of this, because everyone's going to tumble and then we're going to find out who's winning. And that's what I love about this challenge. It is unpredictable. And that's why I know some people give the season slack sometimes for the lack of creativity in the sense that they reuse challenges. But I think this challenge is a great one to reuse, because you're not going to have the same winner every other season.
The outcome and the way that the challenge is won will be different every time they do this version. I loved seeing everyone fall. That was so fun to me, because it felt like it just kept going and going and going. And then my favorite part, though, is that it came down to Rachel and Kyle. At least the edit showed us, we don't know. But I do think it was very close between them, especially because Kyle was speeding up at that point. But just knowing that it was between Rachel, who is having such an amazing episode already, and then Kyle, who really needed another win and is on track to match the record. I mean, that was really exciting, and I'm glad it happened that way. But huge congratulations to Rachel. I mean, what a cherry on top of the day. This is the whipped cream. This is the whipped cream of the day on the top of that sundae. The cherry comes later, but I just think, again, what a special episode for her.
Oh, this was Rachel centric, like how we've had an Andy centric episode, a Sam centric episode. I think we had a Rome one as well. This has literally been Rachel's episode, and I love it for her. And congratulations to her.
Yeah. No, this was great. Really, the episode that I really think about when I see an episode like this is, weirdly enough, the Winners at War Tony episode, where Tony, there's literally every single segment of that episode was Tony focused. It was the extortion episode. And it was literally every single segment was focused on him, and it was positive. And I feel like that's what we're getting from Rachel this episode. It's like this woman can't be stopped. She goes on the journey. That's her segment. She wins it. She comes back. She's believable to everyone back at camp. She wins the immunity. It's just there. She is really lighting up every single segment of this episode. And again, what could go wrong?
We'll see. There's still time in the game for things to go wrong. Roy, clarify this question for me. Could they make multiple stacks and combine them?
I know what he means.
Yeah, like
saying on the thing. I would guess he can.
I straight away thought no. Couldn't.
Yeah, because it has to be one at a time, and then I do think that they have to just make that one stack. All right, so we go back to camp, and they never once convinced me that it was not going to be. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that a little, a little bit of me wanted so badly to feel as though there was an option for him to sort of wiggle out. And again, when he's talking to Andy, in the hammocks, at the end of the day, I mean, he does get Andy. Andy does not vote for Kyle at this tribal council. And I think it's so interesting because there was a tiny part of me that was like, can he do this? But yeah, by and large, as we were going through, I was like, look, this is Kyle's episode to go home. It's just not, it's not going to happen.
All right. Can we have an Ollie? Sorry, let me hear your point, because then I want to talk about this debate that they all end up having over the vote.
Yeah. No, so because the only kind of thing we really saw was, I think, credit to Sam and Genevieve, who were really very much like, we know Andy going is not good for us, so we're going to try. I do want to call out this scene, though, because I know we haven't really talked about Teenie a lot this episode. This is probably just my opinion. I'm probably the only one on this barge. I think this scene was not good for Teenie. So this is where they're talking, and obviously they're trying to pitch something to Teenie and being like, hey, we could do this, da-da-da. And I think it was the way Teenie responded for me. Teenie was kind of like, I'm not doing that, fair enough. But it was then and I'd really appreciate it if you didn't do it as well. And it kind of like, she did, for me, kind of pigeonholed Sam and Genevieve to where I felt like, unintentionally, if you send both of them to the jury and this was something that they can remember and hold on their shoulder, I think it could be trouble for Teenie. And I don't know, just recently with Teenie, I've been a little bit worried about how she's taken some of, like, when she's been, sorry, my brain farted. Let me pause. Thing with Teenie, where she's reacted emotionally to what's happened in the game with Sam sometimes, especially with Genevieve, I think that's just where I worry with her, but that's why I put this in there. Sorry.
Well, I think with Teenie, this took nerve. I agree that coming at it in that way took nerve. But I do feel like, though, what we may have missed that was not in the episodes. Going into this, I think that they've had discussions about getting Kyle out. I think that this has been like a plan up until this point. I think they've all said, if Kyle doesn't win immunity, we got to get him out of here. So I do think in that situation where it's, all right, Kyle didn't win immunity, I could see where Teenie is like, no, it just shuts down any other plan, because this is what we said we were going to do. The opportunity is here. We're doing it. So that's like kind of where I saw Teenie was coming from. At the same time, I do agree. I do think that there was an adaptability thing, but let's face it, Teenie's already in what seems to be a stronger alliance that she's kind of going with. So as long as Teenie is not giving the clues, which, I mean, let's face it, Sam and Genevieve already know, but like, as long as Teenie's not confirming that, I think that they kind of have a right to how they approach this. I do think the funny thing about, and I would appreciate if you two didn't do, I think that was also a reaction to being blindsided by alliance members the past couple of tribal councils.
Fair.
Okay. But you're right. It did take a lot of nerve to come at it from that way. Phil, do you have any strong opinions over Teeny's response here?
Not really. I think Teeny has a really interesting edit. I think it's tough to really place what I think about Teeny. I think Teeny has had one of the weirder edits this season. I think that we are made to care about their story, but I haven't seen that much justification for it. They're not really like ruling votes. I think that there is I mean, I'm sorry. This is my thought.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that we are made to care about Teeny because Teeny is going to make it to the finals. But I think that Teeny is not a contender to actually win. I think that a lot of times, like, I'm so sorry, like playing the power hand in this play. I think that I don't think that them saying this or not saying this matters.
I will say, I like listening to Teeny. Like when Teeny has the confessionals and is explaining their thought process and explaining, like they're such a good talker too. So yeah.
Well, I was gonna say that's the whole thing, right? They are a great talker. That's why we're hearing from them so much, despite them not being consequential to almost anything that we see.
Right.
I think they're a great narrator. And that's about it.
Can we talk though about this debate between Kyle or Genevieve? Who is the right person to vote out right now? Because I'm still kind of torn about this, and I'm hoping we can in the chat with the two of you. Like, I'm hoping we can like. I think the answer is good and bad for some people. You know, like I don't, especially when there is a final. My mind keeps going to there is a majority of 5, and if they let Kyle stay here, there is a really high chance that Kyle wins another immunity challenge, which means that 5 has to go after each other sooner rather than later. Ollie, I see you disagree.
Well, actually, Matthew, if you remember, the probability was 6.25%.
I'm with Caroline on this. I don't blame Andy for trying that, but I was with Caroline. I was like, stop with the numbers.
It's also not accurate. It's not accurate. It's not accurate because once again, that is I'm sure everyone's heard it already. It's not accurate, but I think that you got to go after Kyle here. I think. Yeah. I mean, I just think that you've seen him be so successful at these challenges. I think that you are going to get a more surefire shot at Genevieve later in the game. That is like the thought is that you will have more chances at her than you would Kyle simply on immunity win projection. And it's just it is what it is, to
me it's not it's not about Kyle being a threat to win the game. It's about Kyle having a spot at that final tribal council.
Well, I think for him to get to the final tribal council he would win, and I really do believe that. Yes, I do. And I think because look, for him to tie the challenge record or surpass the challenge record that has been held for how long, and get there in the first place, I think that in itself would be a feat. That's the whole thing. I think, a lot of times we talk about how, simply being a challenge threat doesn't really matter that much. Why? Because they hardly ever actually get to the end. For if he were to actually make the run where they were not able to get him out, I think it would be hard to deny him that. Despite and on top of that, he's just a really classy guy. But I think that, I do think that there is a world where if he was like a complete jerk outside of his challenge wins, like maybe, it would be like, hey, dude, all you've done is win, but you were like a mean person through it all. But he wasn't. And I don't think that he needs social or strategy if he's sitting on literally 6 wins and he's there and he's able to be like, hey, you guys literally had no chance to get me out from this point to this point. And I would imagine when he, if he got sent to fire and won fire, it'd just be another notch. I think that just really, really thinking about it. And I'm strategy over challenge performance. I just think that it would be so hard not to give him that. He would literally be, it would be a historic feat to do that, for him to actually make it on challenge wins.
I was just going to say, it depends who you ask. If you ask Sue, I think Sue, he could do everything under the sun and Sue would still be like, no, I'm not voting for you. Sorry. I don't care.
Yeah. Look, I don't think he's gonna sweep. I don't think that he would sweep it, but I do. I think that he would probably win if he made it there.
Phil, I do think you're looking at it from a more logical perspective than I was, because like I, like you, strategy over
challenge performance.
Thank you.
Always.
I think that's what was kind of holding me back. Is I still, it's hard. Kyle has a really good. I mean, like you said, like he just has a really good vibe, and then he also has the challenge element, and then he could say at the end, there were 2 windows to get me out, and you missed them. So like that's, partially talking about his strategy in a way. He could, and I think he would actually take the Gabe vote as his own. I do think he would take it. I hope he would. So Phil, I think you may have convinced me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It just is what it is. I think that he would be able to stand up there and be like, "Hey, I'm sitting, breathing, living Survivor history. I've won 6 challenges." If he was able to actually say that, but he's not. But if he were, I think that would be a big deal. Which honestly, I mean, look, this goes all the way back to like Chrissy losing HHH. That was like bothersome to me from so many different directions. I was such a huge Chrissy fan, but and I did not find her anywhere close to as insufferable as the fan base seemed to try to make her out to be.
Please, you got the winner right there.
Yeah, but all this to say, I think that like this is the big thing, is that her being able to go to the end and being like, "Hey, I am on a historic list of women who have won 4 challenges in a single Survivor season." Instead of her being the only person making history that night, I think that part of what sucked is that Survivor threw this wrench where Ben had also made history that night, being like, "Oh, well, I made it here under fire. This is the first time that we've ever done something like this," and it sort of took away from that like history. I don't know. I think that there's something about being cemented in Survivor.
I didn't watch that season. I didn't realize that was the first. Sorry.
That's okay. We need to move on, because who am I talking to? That's the whole thing, Matthew. That's the whole thing. People are so upset about Ben's win because it came out of nowhere.
Well, okay, so I did know that part about it, and I think that's maybe why I kind of just like didn't think I needed to watch it. But if you recommend, I think I'd be very annoyed to see that all go down.
It is annoying, but it's a good season.
All right, I still didn't think that Genevieve was going home here, as at all. But like it was funny that they tried to, they had to. It's Survivor. They have to try to make you convinced that there's another name in the mix. But it was Kyle's time to go, and it felt like a goodbye Kyle type of tribal council.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to quickly say I appreciate during this tribal, because I put in my notes, I appreciated all 3 of the underdogs, the actual underdogs, Sam, Kyle, and Genevieve, because I feel like they did do a really good job of kind of calling out almost things that they're like the majority are trying to present. Because I think Sam, when he mentioned about the warped perception, like I think Rachel did a good job of obviously being like, well, that's his perception. I have a different perception. I like how she handled it, but I still think you saw it in his face, and he's like, "You're all literally saying I'm a threat when I haven't won a single challenge and I've got no allies." Like, so I appreciated them in this, and I also like Genevieve's moment. I just want to say,
yeah, I like. There was a lot of good moments from the tribal talk. Yeah. Overall. Sorry, I got distracted. Frank. I just think it was just a toss away. Like, I don't think Kyle really knew who to. I think Kyle knew Teeny in his mind may have been another person on the bottom. Like, I just think at this point, I don't actually know, to be completely honest. But I don't think he was gonna. I didn't get the impression he was gonna write Sue's name down again.
No. Yeah, I'm only really surprised. I'm really surprised that him and Andy did not vote the same way. That's what surprised me because again, Andy did not vote Kyle.
It's funny.
So
I'm
the
not.
fact-
No.
The fact that I felt like that was influenced by Kyle, which would lead me to believe that him and Kyle would be going the same direction. But
So you said this a couple of times, and I think for me, I think the logic in my brain goes, maybe the reason Andy voted Genevieve was because he can spin it of this thing of if Kyle suddenly has an idol and he plays it, then it's not just one vote on Teenie, it's a Teenie and Genevieve vote, and then that's a say to it. That's where I think it may have come from. I don't know. I feel like that is the way it could possibly be spun. But that's where I look at it from that sense, and it's one of the few times I'll look at it logically.
I just thought Kyle was left out.
Yeah, probably.
yeah, but someone had to tell him something. Even if you're left
Yeah.
out, someone gives you a fake plan.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
On the hammocks, what did Andy and Kyle talk about?
Kyle just said, "Please, go ahead, Ollie."
No, I know that Andy was like, "Do you have an idol? Because if not, you might want to get one." Basically, yeah.
I just remember him saying, "Please, don't vote for me," and Andy saying, "I won't. I promise I won't." And he made a
Yeah,
promise that he
right.
won't vote for Kyle, and then he didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe someone was just afraid to be the one to say Genevieve's name to him, like because that means that someone else would have thrown out Genevieve's name. I don't know. I feel like that would have been a great opportunity.
I could see that being the case. Just being like, "Hey, it's going to be Teenie," because if you tell him Genevieve, then someone, it's going to leak to Genevieve. That makes the most sense of anything I've heard.
I know that thank you. I know that we have the jury right here. I feel like I would dress the exact same way Gabe is. I love those shirts. And awesome. Good to see you all again. Saul looking amazing. And then Kyle gets voted out and we get a lot of hugs. And you know what? Like genuine. I think that he was like genuinely
100%.
Yeah, just very authentic. I love seeing this. I wonder if Sue has felt bad about any of the things that she has said. Actually, probably not. I'm gonna miss. Maybe we'll get one more at the start of the next episode with Sue being like, "Finally," which we're probably gonna get.
Oh, no,
But
you are.
I'm gonna miss her montages of he wrote my name down.
I'm not. I'm
You're
not.
done?
It got so stale for me, especially at the start of this episode. I was just like, please just vote him off. So then that way we don't because currently Sue's personality is I hate Kyle, I'm really loyal, and I just want to see something different.
I know, but where does her story go from here?
She can hate Sam
she-
next.
She has an idol. Everyone keeps forgetting she has an idol.
I
A
know
real
she does.
idol.
I know.
I think that she has to do something with this. She has to. I just can't imagine that she does nothing with it.
Did they
So-
remind us of both idols in the previously on?
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny. I thought an idol was going to get played, but then once Rachel got the advantage, I kind of figured an idol would not get played, and they were just reminding us how many advantages specifically Rachel has.
Yeah,
yeah.
So, I thought an idol would get played here. I don't know. We'll see. I think that Sue is the type of player that will just use it on herself when she needs it. I'd love to see that change if she recognizes an opportunity, but I want an idol play. Kyle, we've kind of given him his flowers already throughout the episode, but
Yeah, he's great.
so good.
Absolute class act.
And Amy, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry because I know that you were also a really big Kyle fan as well.
Yeah.
So let us continue on. Now that we've gone through the entire episode, we are going to go over to our segment called The Tribe Has Posted. I can't wait to see what our polls have said in particular. And Ollie, you'll throw us through in a second. All right, Ollie, you drive.
Yeah, okay. So I scoured as per usual. Got a couple of things from Sam here. It was just how he was letting us know not to miss anything. Like, it was the eyes for me. It was the eyes in his Instagram post. I was like, you're alluding to something. I want to know what it was. Nothing to do with him. So we can just quickly move on. And then it was Teenie and Rachel. They're talking about the Underdog Alliance. And I loved that they were kind of slightly poking fun at themselves. Like Teenie, they kind of mentioned like me asking if 5 as a majority in the final 8.
And
That was
confirmed,
amazing.
it's a final 8. We were not at 7. There are not
No.
6
Yes,
people left.
yes, Lord Jesus. But I will say, I mean, this is what we were talking about. It's so I love that they are having fun with this because this is what we were all talking about. Like them, nothing like a 5-3 underdog alliance. That is hilarious. I think it's really, really funny.
Yeah, I appreciated that they could poke fun at it as well. So
Right.
just wanted to give them their thing. Next up is a couple of things from Teeny. So secret episodes, secret scenes, always watch them. So this was actually Teeny hearing what the challenge description was and absolutely clocking it. They literally were like, it's this one. And everyone else was like, no, I think it could be this, or this. And Teeny was like, called it. So go watch the secret scenes because there's another one with Sue making a Christmas tree. And this other one is from Sierra. Firstly, I just have to say, people need to get over this thing with Sierra so on Twitter or X and social medias, because Sierra is presenting bitter on the jury, people are just going at it. And I love that kind of Sierra pointed it out here. So this is why I've got the tweet, because she says, production doesn't tell us to come out looking bitter. In fact, they're actually not in favor of it. Soul relayed the impact my glares had on them the first night of me being on the jury. So we thought it would be fun to continue and to shake them up a bit. And I love that we get that clarity of, just so everyone knows, and I know the casuals aren't going to watch this, so we don't care about the casuals, but there are people that either know they're not bitter, they're just doing it to scare the absolute out of them.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that though.
I think they are bitter. I mean, I think she's literally saying
there's a little bit of bitter.
She's saying and she's allowed to be. She is bitter and she's allowed to be. She literally says here, production does not tell them to come out looking bitter, which means that the first day when she did, she was authentically bitter, which is fine.
But she called that out because a load of fans really went at her and she literally reminded fans, I'd been voted out 24 hours before. Do you really think I'm going to process in 24 hours? And I think that's the case again here because we see it so many times in Survivor.
She is totally allowed to be bitter.
Yeah.
Anyone is.
I agree.
A game for $1 million. I mean, please.
I agree that it's allowed to be bitter. I do question, I'm confused by this because are you just putting up an act for fun?
I think yeah, look, I think that, I think they're having a little bit of fun on jury. They're in Ponderosa. They're bored. They want to do something. And I think that Saul coming in, player from the game, being able to tell her, oh my God, you looking like that, it had everyone shook. I think she's like, all right, let's give them some more. They should be shook, I think they're having some fun, but I think it's authentic. It's authentic emotions at the same time.
Also, they're both amazing in real life, so hop off of them.
They're amazing on the show. Look, people can be bitter and still be amazing. I think that's what I want to happen to have clarity on here. It's not you're either bitter or you're amazing. Sierra is bitter and she should be, and she's also amazing. All these things are true.
I agree with what Roy said. I want Sierra on Traders in the future.
Oh my God, that'd be hilarious. That'd be great. And then we have just one more thing from Sue because I like that she kind of threw a little bit of shade at everyone because the first bit, is my face clean enough for you in this photo? Because I have seen so many people comment on her face. And this is where I just need to remind people to stop with the nastiness. Because the amount of people I keep seeing talk about, no. They're on an island.
I mean,
they don't have soap. Yes.
Her face is substantially dirtier than anyone else.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I think her face is actually absolutely dirtier than everyone else's, and it is fine to question that. I don't know.
I agree. It's fine to question it. Yeah. Also, did you see Carolyn? And I think she was talking to Carson. Carolyn was saying that what the strategy that she thinks Sue is doing is using the dirt as a contour, as a makeup
outfit. Oh my God, that'd be hilarious.
That's what it is. That's what she was saying.
Yeah. So I think that is actually a really interesting idea.
I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, and I do think it's worked for her at certain points. Sometimes
You
What?
can use the ash as like, what
Okay.
is it?
Yes, for
eyeshadow.
Eyeshadow.
for smoky eyes. Yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's hilarious.
But it
Yeah,
was funny because I was thinking this, and then they walked into the challenge, and Jeff said something along the lines of, "Well, you all look like worse for wear," and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, they look like they've been through some stuff."
Yeah. So now we are going to get to the polls. I'm not going to post the first one because we all know what's happening. We love to get Phil guessing. I will say, Matthew, thank you for the poll questions, because all of these questions were Matthew's. No lie, I messaged Matthew and was like, I've got
They just telling
nothing.
people in case they hated them.
No, because I actually think these were really good ones, so I'm going
Alright.
to give you the credit.
Thank you.
let's hear them.
So the first poll was, which player do you think needed to go on the journey the most for their game? So the options were Rachel, Genevieve, Sam, someone else. And you can play along in the comments as well.
So it's gonna be someone else. It's gotta be, right?
So you
I mean,
think
Kyle.
someone else?
Kyle.
Wait.
Yes, Kyle needed to be on it.
Yeah, Kyle is an obvious choice.
Yeah. Matt, did you see the polls?
I see it, but I would say Kyle.
Okay. So I can confirm that 42% said Sam. Only 8% said someone else. What shocked me the most was the 25% tie between Rachel and Genevieve, because I'm like, did Rachel really need to go as same as Genevieve?
No, I agree. I feel like Rachel should have been the 8%.
Agreed.
Sorry, not
Yeah,
to tell people how they vote. I was just that's what I would expect, is what I was saying.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that it was not someone else for Kyle. That said, I wonder if Kyle's name was specifically on there, if he'd get more votes.
I agree.
Well, that's why I said someone else. So the next poll question was Sue too focused on Kyle? The options were no, she gave him a chance, only a little bit, yep, cue the montage.
I think it's got to be yep. Cue the montage, right? Wait, what are the other options?
Nope, she gave him a chance and only a little bit.
It's got to be one of the last two. I'm gonna go cue montage.
Yeah.
72%. I'm shocked that it was that low, to be honest. But yeah, 72% agree, and I am in that 72% that agree. Cue the montage because it was hilarious. And the final poll we had is the alliance between Andy, Rachel, Teeny, Caroline, and Sue our final five. The options are yes, that's my group. Maybe, like unsure, or nope, one isn't making it.
I'm gonna guess nope. I think the audience is either maybe or nope.
I feel like with Kyle out, it makes it more like probable that those five can, if they wanted to, make it to final five. But at the end of the day, like we've all been saying, it's Survivor, and the other shoe's got to drop at some point. So I'm gonna say nope.
69% said nope, one isn't making it. So
I'm sorry. Can we show Polar Knight's comment real quick? As a barber, I like this show. It is every stage of beard growth. Or you know what? I have some help. If you need to
It's so
show
funny.
any of your clients this so they can choose from the menu.
I think Phil's got the big like the vicious one out of us because I trimmed. But yes, that is actually it for the polls, and that is it for the social medias.
I always think we have more because they're so much fun.
Woo,
right.
That was fun.
Yeah. And thank you, Ollie, for taking us through all of those. As always, that pretty much ends up our podcast for today. But we have so much at Survivor Now podcast that we want to remind you about. We have our Patreon, of course, which is a great way to support the channel. But also, I like to take this opportunity to say just you being here is a really huge thank you to Phil, Ollie, and myself. We love having you all, whether you're just viewing or also in the live chat. We also have our merchandise, which, I hear are very comfortable. And then we are also on Twitter and Instagram. These are our handles there, which you can find us. Twitter is where we do our polls. So if you would like to participate in those, we usually upload those the day after the episode. Then we have our Spotify, but I always like to say that you all like to see our faces anyway, just like Polar Nights. And then we have that's it. Actually, that's us. We are Survivor Now podcast. I just want to thank you all so much again for spending your Saturday with us. Next week, we will be back to talk about episode 12 of Survivor 47. Have a great week, everyone, and we will see you next time.